the motion be agreed to, and I call the Father of the House, the member for Berowra.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker. Can I thank the member for Kingsford Smith for proposing this motion? Can I thank the member for Dawson who seconded it to give it its bipartisan character? Can I thank him for acknowledging the devastation caused by Cyclone Pam on the people of Vanuatu, Tuvalu and Kiribati, and acknowledging the enormous destructive force of Cyclone Pam and its loss of life, as well as the damage to 90% of Port Vila and 45% of Tuvalu's population, and the destruction of its outer islands. The motion, of course, recognises the enormous effort that will be required and the huge task that our friends in the Pacific face, and it's appropriate to acknowledge the international effort that is being provided. But the motion also goes on to call on the Australian Government to monitor the situation closely and to work with the governments to provide timely and appropriate assistance as needed. Let me just assure the honourable member that that is exactly what has been happening. It is important to recognise that this cyclone has been quite devastating. We have seen in Australia cyclones, and we know the very significant impact that they can have upon communities, the destruction of the means of support, so much housing and the like. I might say that this tragedy has cost lives. The number was not, as I understand it, as suggested by the member for Corio. I'm told the official death toll stands at 16, not 11. But Australia has pledged support. It put in place quickly an emergency response, and I might commend the Foreign Minister who travelled to Vanuatu on Sunday to see firsthand what was happening. She met with the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister and assured them of our continuing support. Australia does remain committed to working in partnership with Vanuatu in coordination with regional and humanitarian partners to meet their needs. As at the 23rd of March, we have committed over $10 million in response, beyond the $5 million that the member for Corio mentioned. It included $5 million to assist the efforts of Australian non-government organisations such as Red Cross and the United Nations, including the World Health Programme, as well as UNICEF, and they've been providing particularly urgent food aid. It provided $50,000 for emergency sexual and reproductive health services for women in Vanuatu. It provided additional humanitarian supplies for up to 7,500 people, including sanitation and shelter kits. The deployment of a crisis response team to provide consular assistance to Australians. The deployment of Australian urban search and rescue personnel team. The deployment of Australian medical assistance teams, AUSMAT, as well as the Australian disaster expert to monitor the United Nations disaster assessment and coordination. In addition, the Australian Defence Force has delivered emergency relief supplies and equipment and personnel in support of the ongoing consular and humanitarian response. We've been assisting Australians, and there were some 1,798 Australians in Vanuatu as at the 23rd, and we've made contact with all of those. We've identified 7 Australians in need of assistance, and all Australians are believed to be accounted for. The government has assisted people to return to Australia, and this has been particularly important. It's important also in the context of Tuvalu that we've provided up to $1 million Australian dollars for humanitarian assistance and are working closely with the government of Tuvalu and partners to make available more relief supplies and personnel. I think it's important to recognise that Australia has seen something of the disastrous devastation that has occurred and has, as I have outlined, actively supported the governments that have been so very much affected along with their people and provided assistance as you would expect.
Thank the member for